Anyone who believes in indefinite growth on a physically finite planet is either mad or an economist.
We don't want to focus politics on a notion that involves the rejection of principles around which a large majority of our fellow citizens organize their lives.
We are not as endlessly manipulable and as predictable as you would think.
There are some issues, I think, that really are too important for one organisation or one person. There are around 1 in 100 people on the autism spectrum, and we estimate that only around 15% of those are in full-time employment. And what that means, of course, is that not only are individuals on the spectrum missing out on opportunities, missing out on the opportunity to have the same activities as others and the same financial opportunities, but it also means that society is losing out. We're missing those talents and we're missing the skills, and businesses are missing the sort of skills and talents that people on the spectrum can bring.
In what I'm going to say about what research has taught us about the strengths in autism, I'm going to have to make some generalizations, so I apologize, and I want to remind us, of course, that everybody with autism is an individual, everybody is different, and generalizations don't necessarily apply to every single person. On the social side, we know that for people with autism, intuitively and quickly appraising what's in somebody else's mind is not easy and doesn't come as naturally as it does to so-called neurotypical people or people without autism. So it's harder for most people with autism to put themselves in the shoes of other people in that intuitive way. Now, that can be seen as leading to all kinds of difficulties, and that's the traditional way in maybe diagnosis to think about social skills or social difficulties in autism. So, for example, a person with autism may not think about the impact of what they're going to say and may not sugarcoat what they're going to say in the way that neurotypicals do. And on the one hand, that might be seen as being tactless or blunt. But of course, you can also see that as being honest and telling it as it is. And that's a skill that many employers really want. Similarly, you might say that the social difficulties in autism lead to a difficulty with managing other people, that an employee with autism might find it difficult to be a manager of others. But you could also cast that as seeing that a person with autism is going to be fair and isn't going to play political or Machiavellian games. And you could also say, on the negative side, that people with autism may have difficulty getting on with their co-workers, getting on with peers. But you can also cast that in a positive light and say that few people with autism are going to waste a lot of time gossiping. And Temple Grandin, an incredibly intelligent woman with autism in the States, likes to say that if it had been left to the neurotypicals, we'd all still be sitting around in caves, gossiping around the campfire, and we'd never have gone off and invented the wheel. It needed somebody with autism to get bored with all the gossip and go and do something. So you can see the differences of social processing and the difficulty in intuitively reading other minds as leading to a problem of translation. And it's important to remember that people with autism in general find what neurotypicals, you and I, do, as irritating, frustrating, puzzling, as we sometimes find what people with autism do. So that, for example, when you say to somebody with autism, I'll be back in a minute, and it takes you 5 minutes, that's deeply irritating and illogical. So a problem of translation, and that means that, for example, at interview, the behavior of a person with autism, for example, not making eye contact because they're concentrating on listening and decoding your tone of voice, may be misunderstood unless we make a reasonable accommodation on each side. And the last thing to say about that is that, of course, making an accommodation is effortful. So just as we think about a process of translation, so the person with autism who fits into the neurotypical way of doing things at work or in other aspects of their life is like somebody speaking a second language, and it's very tiring speaking a second language if you didn't learn it as a bilingual person. Now, turning to the non-social aspects of autism, there are some areas that are typically thought of as deficits, and these have to do with so-called executive functions, being able to shift and respond to change, difficulty perhaps in planning and coping with novelty. But again, you can cast that in a positive light that many people with autism are able to persevere with a task that other people might find boring or repetitive and have a huge desire to get it exactly right. We also know that people with autism have non-social assets. There appears to be a detail focus that many people with autism share, that they're able to notice and remember details in the world that the rest of us neurotypicals tend to miss. This, of course, is really valuable in all sorts of professions, to have an eye for detail. And neurotypicals tend to see what they expect to see, what the context tells them to expect, whereas people with autism in general see what's really there. So an example might be being good at proofreading because you're not being distracted by the meaning and your expectations, but that's a relevant skill in all kinds of professions. And this brings an original perspective that can be really valuable. In addition, around 30% of adults with autism have an identifiable talent, are unusually good at music or maths or art or memory, according to Patricia Howland's recent research. And we found that some of the genetic underpinnings that predispose to autism also predispose to talent in those areas. And so I think we should be celebrating the difference, and it's precisely because the autistic view of the world is different from the neurotypical view of the world that we really should be giving jobs in a more open-minded and enlightened way to people on the autism spectrum.
If an employer hires someone, I think there's a number of challenges that one faces to get the employment rate up amongst people with autism. So the first one is that they actually need to be able to get into an interview room. So I haven't knowingly interviewed anyone with autism ever. And for me to hire someone who has autism, I need to have someone in the room. So that's the first challenge. And I don't know if it's because of human resources or headhunters, or maybe the CV is not good enough or not well written enough. Maybe they don't have work experience, maybe the job descriptions are not clear enough. But no matter what it is, I don't get to see them. So then the second thing is that if I were to see them, I need to be able to do a proper interview. So I wouldn't have had training. So if someone comes in and they avoid eye contact maybe, or you need to change the question so they don't take it too literally, it's a real challenge. And then if maybe they bring someone else in to help them, then you kind of get worried that the rest of their career you will have to communicate through someone else. So even if you wanted to help, you would feel pretty worried. And then one more thing, which maybe is the most worrying of everything for me, is that if you have someone sitting in the room and you interview them and you think, actually, you know what, this person can probably do this job really well, it's really difficult to understand the person behind it. So it might be an amazing person that you really want to be with, like a good person, but maybe it's a bad person. So how do I know? You want to be with people in your office who you like and enjoy being with. So how am I going to be able to go to that next level when I interview someone? So then the third challenge is, how do you manage someone on a day-to-day basis? Do you need to change your office? How is the rest of the workforce going to react? And then the last challenge, you need to have a job available. And a lot of these jobs are being done by computers now, are being done abroad. There's this thing called crowdsourcing. In the first couple of years of one's career, where you do kind of mundane stuff, is just being put up for bid on the internet and is being done off-site. So the kind of jobs that are typically done by someone with autism.
Most people who know me well know that I'm a massive politics geek. Therefore, getting a place on the Speaker's Parliamentary Placement Scheme was superb, was excellent. Despite a difficult start, moving down from Scotland to London, meeting new people and getting used to the fast-paced way of life and getting used to the transport system, getting used to the overcrowded tubes. I did make the very most of my time in London and in Parliament. I really enjoyed working for the Right Honourable Hazel Blears MP. She was a very good boss. I learned a lot from her and was able to develop my admin and research skills during my time in the office. I even ran her Westminster office for a week whilst waiting on a new colleague to start. That was challenging, but luckily I managed to cope fine and there was no disasters, so that was even better. I also met some great MPs too, some of them who have become good friends, supporters, and mentors and role models. I also managed, during my time on the internship scheme, I managed to raise an autism awareness event in Parliament. This was attended by the Speaker of the House of Commons, the Right Honourable John Bercow MP, MPs, parliamentary staff, House staff and friends. That was a key highlight of my time working in Parliament. When I say all of that, there was also challenges. Working for an MP, working for Hazel meant working to tight deadlines, and the standard of work had to be very, very good. That meant there was pressure on me to work very, very hard, and I had to work well. I am a perfectionist, and therefore I put a huge amount of pressure, perhaps too much pressure, on myself to give 110%. This meant that there could be times when I could get very stressed, very anxious, and sometimes I could have meltdowns. The solution to this was to take 5-10 minutes outside of the office to calm down, to refocus. And I have to say, I thank my boss and my colleagues for their understanding of that and of autism. Another thing that I found challenging was being in a place where I encountered so many different political opinions and political views. For somebody who likes political debate, to encounter so much different views, it challenged me. And some people on the autistic spectrum don't like change. Well, I went through a political transformation. I came down to London as a left-wing democratic socialist, and I turned out to be a conservative. So you don't get much more of a political transformation than that. I do not regret my time on the Speaker's Parliamentary Placement Scheme. I grew up a lot, both on a personal and political level. I started to become my own man, which was important. It has enabled me to really look to the future with a bit more confidence. I can go into the workplace, I can be a good employee if I'm given the chance. It is a tragedy that only 15% of people with autism in this country are in any form of employment at all. It is a scandal. I would like to see 3 things happen. A change in attitudes amongst employers. This is slowly beginning to happen as more employers begin to see that people like myself can be loyal, hard-working and very focused employees. 2, more awareness of autism in businesses, politics, education. 3, I would like to see more opportunities for people with autism to get into the world of work through paid internships and work experience in a wide variety of businesses and other institutions. I will personally continue to campaign for positive change because I want to see my peers and I give them the chance to show that they are very capable individuals. I believe in a United Kingdom that has aspiration, hard work, responsibility and fairness at its heart. I believe too that my peers and I can play a real role in our nation. We have voices, we have talent, we have potential and we have aspiration. Give us a chance to show what we can do and we will not let you down.
I'm here to tell you about our project at SAP that we have kicked off last year in May, together with our partner Specialistene. At SAP we are committed to employ 1% of our workforce by 2020 out of the autistic spectrum. And we are a company of globally 65,000 employees. We are a software company, and we see exactly what my colleagues here on the panel have talked about, we see the ability that people on the spectrum bring to our company, the ability for innovation, but also the special skills. So our focus is first and foremost on what the person on the spectrum can do. I'm not so much interested in what he cannot do or what he's not so good at. We talk about this as well, but that's really not our priority. And the other question that we discuss very intensely is, what is your need? I have a very good friend who's on the autistic spectrum who's told me once, you know, when it comes to autism and employment, I was always looking for a picture to describe or make it clear to others how I feel. And what I came up with is a picture of two tools. One is a hammer, being more of the neurotypical employee. It's very intuitive. You know what to do with a hammer. You grab it and you have a nail and it's ready to go. But I feel I'm more of a complex tool. I need some synchronization or some adjustment, you know, like a wrench that needs to be adjusted to a certain screw or something. And I need this calibration from the outside, you know, because I cannot calibrate myself to the needs that the employers have. So I need a little bit more preparation maybe to fully unleash my talent. And I need this calibration in regular circles. But I can only say, for us in our project, we offer that to our employees, and it's really nothing to be scared of or have worries or fears. It's minor things, and if you are brave enough to just enter on this journey and meet each other in a dialogue and meet each other where we're at, and we're all at different points, then you will find out that so much is possible, way more is possible than you thought of in the beginning. Then, I mean, we are in this partnership with Specialistene, and so we're not alone. You know, you can do this, you know, with a strong partner on your side. And the longer we're on this journey, we find out that so many other colleagues within my company have a passion for the topic of autism because they're like myself, a parent, or a brother or a sister, and so we're really joining forces, all colleagues in the company, to create an environment where it's really not an issue whether you have autism or not. And our autistic colleagues have also created a first small movement to educate their colleagues about how it is to be autistic and how they feel now, you know, being employed and having all the opportunities that were not possible for them, you know, for the first time to be able, you know, to have a driver's license but not to be able to afford a car, to have to live with the parents, you know, now for the first time to be able to afford an apartment. And it's just great, amazing, wonderful to see how these young men have developed just by having regular work with minor adjustments really from an employer side. It's not that difficult.
I was very interested, David, when you said that Hazel Blears was a good boss. And I'm just wondering, what makes a good boss of someone with autism? And I'm also thinking, how can we make more of them? How can we replicate them?
A good boss, they've got a good awareness of condition, and they do everything that they can to provide every support to make working in the office or not working in the office as comfortable as possible.
Thank you. And Lex, I wonder from your point of view as a manager.
I mean, a good boss makes lets someone be the best they can be, and then the question is obviously like, is it possible for the organization to facilitate people at their best? That's the question.
Yes. And what do we need to do to enable that, presumably?
Yeah.
I think a good boss is someone who truly is open and wants to employ someone on the spectrum. Preparation is key, not only for the new colleague on the spectrum, but also for the colleagues and for the boss. When I'm asked by other managers, well, what do I need to do? I think most of the time I tell them, whatever is needed, you know? I mean, it could be all kinds of different stuff. I mean, it's not rocket science. It's like down-to-earth guidance. For people on the spectrum, sometimes life is like walking on a tightrope, you know, and you as a manager, you're sort of their safety net, and they need to be able to trust you, you know. You don't ever say you're going to do something and then not do it, you know. Just be aware of certain things that are important, you know, and if in doubt, ask, you know, engage in a dialogue with your new employee from the spectrum. I mean, usually managers are maybe a little bit fearful to ask directly, but this is what I recommend, you know, talk with them, not about them.